Today's video is brought to you by Squarespace. More on them a little bit later. Welcome back to Sonic Speed Reading. Today we're going to be wrapping up the Eggperial City storyline, and if you're not caught up with anything that's going on, I do recommend you check out the playlist. I'm going to have that in the link in the description, or as usual, if you can, I always recommend just reading the comics themselves. They're a great deal of fun, but the point is we're not going to waste any time catching people up. We're going to hop right into it with issue 60. We pick back up with Tangle falling from the Central Command Tower. She's panicking because she's got nothing to grab, but that's okay because she just falls through the ground, because I guess she forgot she was intangible. But that doesn't mean she's out of danger, as Metal Sonic lands right next to her with the portal plates that can disperse her atoms. So while Metal can't do anything to her directly, he can send them after her, and he does just that. Thankfully, Tangle is able to escape because, again, she can just slip through anything. So once Metal clears out, she pops back up into the city. She knows she has to tell Sonic and the others what just happened, but then starts thinking about Lanolin and Whisper, because they would know what to do, but unfortunately they're no longer around. She's not even sure she can save them at this point, but she doesn't have time to think about it. She has to keep moving forward. So she uses her best instincts and decides to follow the plumes of smoke. That's as good of a lead as any. But as we see in this final frame of the page, Metal Sonic will be following close behind her. We turn our attention to Sonic, Tails, Silver, Amy, Blaze, and Rouge, with Amy and Silver gathered around Tails' Miles Electric, looking at a general map of the city and coming up with a plan. Not much is actually being said here, it's just a chance to really show off all the different personalities. Silver is confident they can win as long as they work together. Blaze tells them not to be rash. Rouge is focused on rescuing Shadow and Omega, and I love that. Tails is calculating the odds. Long and short of it, Silver agrees with his friends, saying it does make sense not to rush things. And Amy says it's always best when cooler heads prevail, just as Tangle pops up through the ground and through the Miles Electric, scaring the living crap out of everybody, and Amy reacts by slamming the Pico Hammer down over the Miles Electric. That was a cute little joke. I enjoyed that. Tails is devastated as he uses that stupid thing all the time, and now it's crushed to rubble. Also want to point out that if Tangle was tangible, she would have been crushed at that point, but whatever. Everybody's quite shocked at her semi-solid state, and Sonic quickly deduces that the portal trap they ran into at the beginning of this adventure is what caused this peculiar state she is currently in. But before they can do anything else, the portal trap returns and tries to trap Sonic. Metal Sonic has arrived on the scene. Of course, Sonic dodges without any kind of effort, and a fight breaks out between the two hedgehogs. But as they fight, the portal trap begins to hover around Silver, who is rescued at the last minute by Blaze. Recognizing that green light, Sonic realizes this is the same type of trap that took the Diamond Cutters, and thanks to Silver's power, they're quickly taken out of commission as he uses his telekinesis to crush the plates. Sonic and Silver get ready to fight Metal, but Amy is at her limit. They've got a ton of problems and they have no time, and she's just not in the mood. So she takes her Pico Hammer down once again and takes out the building they are standing on, or at least the roof, which crumbles under Metal Sonic's feet and traps him under debris. She's come quite a long way from being kidnapped by that same robot. Good for her. With Metal out of the way, Tangle can pass on the information she and the other Diamond Cutters got from the Central Tower. But first, she wants to know where Shadow ended up. As we turn the page, it looks like the group has split up, as we follow Blaze, Silver, and Rouge on the ruined city streets below, as they've now been covered in the giant fake emeralds, creating something of an underground wreck. It's kind of cool. Blaze tells them to keep their guard up just in case any more of those androids are still lurking around, and one takes a swipe at Rouge, so it looks like there might still be some functioning, but fortunately they come across Omega, who is pinned under a bunch of debris, but thankfully he is still functioning. Only problem is they're not out of danger as the floor collapses beneath them, and they go tumbling down into the hidden bunker filled with giant egg mechs, which we saw first in issue 50 if I remember correctly. But not only do we see a bunch of wrecked egg mechs, we also see the trapped Shadow. As Rouge herself says, it looks like those fake emeralds had some nasty nasty side effects. They have him trapped in what looks to be a comatose state. She moves in to rescue her friend, but unfortunately, between her and Shadow are a bunch of his fakers, as it seems some more of the Shadow androids have indeed survived. We turn our attention back to the rest of the group, which consists of Sonic, Amy, Tails, and Tangle, who I guess can sit just fine. I thought she could just fall through things, whatever. Anyway, Tails has just gotten the elevator back up and running. Amy goes over the plan, which consists of first breaking into the control room, then having Tails disable the safeguards for the fake Emerald power grid, and with that out of the way, they can rescue Whisper and Lanolin, and at the same time, crashing the system will stop the city from growing. But before any of that plan can go underway, they have to deal with the returning Metal Sonic, who is slashing at the rope for the elevator. The cable cuts and the elevator falls, but we have Tails, who takes the hands of Amy and Sonic, and I guess Tangle as well? I suppose she is tangible again, at least for this page. She's holding on to Sonic, and she's fighting back against Metal, wrapping him up in her tail to let Sonic escape. But they spent so much time establishing that she's intangible, and that comes back into play, so unless I'm told otherwise, I think this was a bit of an error. Anyway, we turn our attention back to Omega, Blaze, Rouge, and Silver as they do their best to fight off the Shadow androids. They're doing their best to make an opening to get to Shadow, who is still surrounded by the giant emeralds. But unfortunately, it is overpowering, knocking the heroes back. They can't even get close. But Silver, with all of his abilities, does his best to push back. He does get zapped as he makes contact, so instead he uses his telekinesis to try and move pieces of the rock away to get to Shadow. But it's growing faster than he can tear it apart. He's beginning to doubt his abilities, but with a determined nod and a bit of support by Blaze, Silver doubles down on his effort to save Shadow, moving off even more pieces of the rock. We then turn our attention to the central tower where Eggman is gloating, noticing all the disturbances from below the city. Eggy says that must be Shadow. His chaos controls made the fake emeralds unstable. He says, keep it up. The more they try to use his emeralds, the bigger they will get, and that will just provide more power to his city. Orbot points out just how dangerous that can be to the city's infrastructure, but Eggman, being Eggman, waves off the worries, saying that's what the safeguards are for. Even if the emerald's power overloads, he can just reboot the system again. But in the middle of his gloating, Sonic, Tails, Amy, and Tangle, who is still wrapped around Metal Sonic, even though she's supposed to be intangible, show up on the scene. Amy and Tails knock him off his throne, and Tails immediately gets to work on the computer. Tangle pops off of Metal, so I guess she's become intangible again. They're not really conveying this particular idea very well, but whatever. Sonic and Metal Sonic begin to fight, and I do love the bit of sass from Sonic, dodging all of Metal's attack, saying he wants to fight, not play patty cake. With the baddies handled, it looks like the heroes have everything under control, but leave it to Eggman to pull out his Glock and shoot Amy's useless hammer out of her hand. This distracts Sonic, who gets socked in the face by Metal, leaving only Tails up. He tries to keep going at the computer while smacking Eggman in the face with his tails. It's amazing. Looks like another portal is about to trap Tangle, but just before that happens, Tails clicks something on the screen, right as Eggman pulls him away with one hand. I love this. I adore Eggman treating these animals like obnoxious little pets. This is amazing. But Eggman just looks on in fear, telling Tails he has no idea what he's done. Turns out Tails did indeed remove the limiter, but now that means there's nothing stopping the emeralds from growing, and quickly more and more spires of emeralds shoot out from the ground, completely destroying the city around them, rocking the central tower. Eggman looks irritated and clicks one of his buttons, saying fine. It's time for Plan B. Plan B being, of course, having legs shoot out from the tower and turning it into a giant egg mech, because why not? And that is where issue 60 ends. Before we carry on, I want to take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, Squarespace. Jumping online and building up your own brand was always an intimidating thing for me, but Squarespace makes that a streamlined, fast, and easy process, all while making you look good thanks to their Fluid Engine, a next-generation website design tool that lets you tweak any of their many templates with easy-to-use drag-and-drop tools. And I don't need to tell you how useful websites can be, whether you want to build up a portfolio of your work, an art gallery, or a shop, because yes, they have everything you need to run your own online business, including analytics that help show you the strongest avenues of growth and help you build up marketing strategies, which include integration with your favorite social media networks. And they can even help you set up an online shop to sell and distribute custom merch. All you have to do is design it and they'll handle production, inventory, and shipping. Really doesn't get any easier than that. And to make it just a bit easier, if you use my link, squarespace.com/gameapologist, you'll get 14 days for free, which is plenty of time to see if this is right for you. And when you want to make a purchase, that same link will get you 10% off your first order. Thank you again to Squarespace for sponsoring the video. Issue 61 opens up with the giant tower egg mech, and it looks amazing. The two groups get back up on their feet, with Sonic saying that Eggman hasn't won yet, and Eggy, of course, saying, "Haven't I?" His brilliant creations are more than enough to handle just basic hero-villain banter. It's adorable. Sonic leaps in for another attack, but the smirking Eggman just snaps his fingers, and the portals that were once around Tangle turn their attention to Sonic, trapping him in a portal. And with Sonic out of the picture, Eggman sends Metal after Amy and Tails. Tangle does her best to fight back, but she is once again intangible. It's fine, she just goes right through Metal Sonic. But as Metal pins Amy to the floor, Tangle once again reaches out and actually grabs Metal, because sure, who needs consistency? She realizes she's tangible again, but this unfortunately leaves her exposed to be attacked as Eggman grabs her by the shirt. Tangle does have her trusty tail readying up a punch, but Eggman is sick and tired of all these stupid animals and takes his gun and puts it to Tangle's head. My god, I love this. Does this stupid thing keep coming back because I keep joking about it? Is this just a fan favorite image? Eggman with the Glock? So yeah, the heroes are at a standstill with a gun to Tangle's head. But the Mad Doctor is caught off guard as a familiar sheep comes walking into the room. And when Eggman asks, "Who are you people?" Lanolin responds by saying, "I believe you met our namesake, the Diamond Cutters. We serve as a small, specialized strike team that assesses danger and offers aid in extreme conditions, but we mostly intend to be a problem." With that final awesome entrance being finished up by an attacking Whisper, who lays down her blue hammer on Eggman, who sends him spiraling. Oh, it's great. Yeah, it looks like Lanolin and Whisper are just fine, but before we can figure out how that happened, we turn our attention back to the rescue efforts for Shadow. Omega, Blaze, and Rouge can only stand aside as Silver does his best to remove more and more of the fake emeralds from the trapped Shadow. But as he's doing his best to remove them, we can see that more of the emeralds are surrounding Silver himself. Both the hedgehogs are now entombed, but Shadow finally, wearily says, "Get away." He's finally regained consciousness. He tells Silver that there's so much energy building, it's like noise in his head. His effort is of no use. His way of saying, "Go save yourself," and of course, an adorable little reference to Sonic 06, and Silver responds, as he should, getting irritated and repeating, "No use, no use." He does love saying that quite a bit. He redoubles his efforts. He says that he's not giving up that easily, and neither is Shadow. He is the ultimate life form, after all. He's not gonna let an overgrown rock tell him what to do. And with that, Silver finally clears the emeralds surrounding Shadow, who picks himself back up and says with a smirk, "You're right, I am the ultimate." We turn our attention back to that central tower, where Tails quickly explains why the heroes are suddenly back. It seems the trap partially displaced their bodies, but with the city's computer systems offline, they're all shifted back to normal. As Lanolin says, they're back now, that's what matters. And she actually takes her bell off and it forms a handle, and she sends a shockwave out across the floor. Eggman finally is starting to panic, saying this is impossible, his city is perfect, and he sends Metal out to attack the heroes. But he's interrupted by the returning Sonic, because yes, if the Diamond Cutters could return after the city systems were offline, so too did Sonic, who boots Metal out of the window. With the opening, the Diamond Cutters make their leave, and I love this, and I know other people have pointed this out, but this is almost like a Sonic Heroes group with these three. It's adorable. Hope we get some mods. Sonic looks down at Eggman's gun and crushes it under his sneaker. I guess it was about time to get that out of the picture. Eggman gets up fuming, and Sonic says he's taken it too far, and he knows what Sonic is going to do next. Eggman can only look on, letting out an irritated noise as Sonic leaps out after the diamond cutters. He grabs a hold of Amy's hand, who is being held aloft by Tails, who asks where to now because there's nowhere to land. Just then, the largest of the emerald spires shoots out from the ground, rivaling the size of the central tower mech. And atop it is Rouge, Omega, Blaze, Silver, and in command of that tower is none other than Shadow. And now that the security system and the dimensional traps prove to be useless, Eggman resorts to what he knows best, a good old-fashioned robot attack, as he takes command of the mech directly. Metal Sonic, who is clinging to the side of a building after being knocked out, kicks off a little turtleoid, oh no, you sweet little thing, and then rides the larger one and grabs a hold of Sonic. Rouge yells no, and Omega yells yes! And I gotta be with Omega, that's an awesome image. Metal Sonic riding a turtle robot to take on the regular Sonic. That is exactly my kind of thing. I adore this. It has everything that I love. Omega's excited to get into another fight, so Rouge, Blaze, and the Big Bot lay down some attacks against Metal. But while he's defending against their barrage, Sonic turns the table and kicks him in the face, sending his doppelganger into Omega's line of fire, taking him out of commission for the remainder of this story. The rest of our cast regroups on the giant emerald spire, just as Eggman lays down an attack of lasers, saying he's worked too hard to let this city go, and he's going to take them apart. But atop the tower, we have Silver and Shadow. Silver asks, how many more hits can we take? And Shadow says enough to win this fight, and then lays out some corny, badass lines as he says, this city is a true monument to your hubris, Doctor. I'll show you the monster you've made. Chaos Control. This is the kind of Shadow everybody's been missing. Embrace that cringe, baby. He lets off that Chaos Control, and all of the fake emeralds surrounding the city begin to light up. He has teleported all of the fake emeralds, but he is not done. As he says, these perverse emeralds connect your entire city, and with them under my control, you've built your own cage. And lets off another Chaos Control as more of the fake emeralds shoot up around the mech, pinning its legs. From down below, Sonic sees what Shadow is putting down and asks his friends to give him a boost. First starting off with Blaze, followed up by Amy's Pico Hammer. Yeah, they're doing an Advent Children, who cares? That's awesome. Finally, flying high above the Emerald Spire, where we can see Shadow and Silver. And no, we don't see all three overpowered hedgehogs working together, but it is nice to see all three of them in the same panel, once again showing some 06 fans a little bit of love. But speaking of love, we turn our attention to the panel right next to that one, where we see Tangle and Whisper holding hands, with a very interesting set of colors they're using for the backgrounds here. We'll cover that a little bit later, but for now, it's this duo's turn to get Sonic where he needs to go. He grabs a hold of Tangle's tail, and Whisper launches all of them up above the tower mech. As Eggman yells over the loudspeaker, if his city falls, there will be nothing left to divert power away from the artificial Emerald Network. Their destructive power is incalculable. He's the only one who can prevent it. And Sonic just says, yeah, right. Pleading doesn't suit you, Doc. And with a whip of her tail, Tangle launches Sonic into the mech, taking it out of commission with one powerful attack. As it crashes to the city below, Shadow tells Tails and Silver to go and protect the others. He says the Doctor was not bluffing. These emeralds are about to explode and take the entire city with them. Silver gathers all of the heroes close, protecting him under a telekinesis shield. And Shadow, standing atop his emerald spire, looking down at the exploding city below, unleashes one final Chaos Control, yeeting the entire city into space. It was awesome! As we can see, the fake emeralds that remain begin to wither away into dust as we see multicolored explosions go off in the skies above. The Eggperial City is once and for all destroyed. Later on, we see all of our heroes relaxing at a picnic, with Tails and Belle, who we haven't haven't seen in a while, looking over a reconstructed Wispin for Whisper, and Sonic laying in the grass just looks on peacefully. Amy and Jewel bring out a cute little pink cake, and Rouge says it almost looks too pretty to eat, and I love Amy here, saying, well, you better eat some cause I worked hard on this, and quickly sees that Rouge is holding something she should not have. Turns out it's an echidna artifact, something that Rouge found in Eggman's trophy room, and Amy scolds her, telling her to hand it over as the pink hedgehog will personally bring it back to Knuckles herself, which Rouge begrudgingly agrees to. And I love that the artifact looks like something out of Sonic Adventure, not just in design, but how angular it is. It looks low poly. I love that attention to detail. And I think it's safe to assume that they're going to have Amy on Angel Island thanks to the recent release of Sonic Origins Plus. I wonder if they're going to do any kind of light retconning in that issue. Guess we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, Amy turns around asking where's Sonic, and I love the little attention to detail of the tiny little hearts in her eyes. That's adorable. And Tails just says, oh, he ran off. You know how he is. As we see Sonic launching off a familiar checkerboarded bit of soil, launching off into whatever adventure lies ahead. And that is where the story ends. Now, there are a few things I do want to talk about in terms of the overall arc that we just went through. I'm gonna be interested in reading all of this back in one go, because when I think about it, it has been 10 issues dealing with the Eggperial City, and that is a healthy amount of time. But even with that considered, I don't know. I feel like they could have done a little bit more with this premise. That's not to say I don't enjoy what is here. It is pretty cool. A large part of why I feel that way is because of how they set up the metal virus. They spent so much time with that story, and while I know a lot of people got sick and tired of the length of it, I did like soaking in a particular premise. And I think maybe this only lasted 10 issues in response to how long the metal virus did run, which does make sense. And I also probably feel that this deserved more attention because, well, there are a lot of parallels to old school Western Sonic stories. I know people got sick and tired of me talking about this when I was comparing Lanolin to Sally, but I hate to break it to you guys, if there is anybody who is making direct parallel comparisons, I would bet money it is the comic team. They have worked with the Freedom Fighters, they have created these characters. If there are any parallels, they're well aware of it. They're the ones making those decisions. So if you want to get on my case about not letting Sally and the Freedom Fighters go, you first need to talk to the comic creators. But that said, I don't know if they're trying to flat out replace those characters. I don't think this is an insulting thing. I just think the parallels are there, and they took the bones of those ideas with the premise and some of the characters, and they have created something new. I never once said those comparisons were a bad thing. If you personally get offended by it, that is your business, not mine. I don't care. I love those characters, and I want to see them back. That's just how I roll. But I have always said I wanted to see what the game cast would be like if they dealt with something like Robotropolis, and this is about as close as we get. And this played out almost exactly like I said it would. While Robotropolis was a long-standing threatening force to the world of Mobius, in the world of Game Sonic and his super powerful friends, this city wouldn't last a week, and I don't think it did in this world, especially with Silver and Shadow being on the scene. To me, as an old school fan who has loved every iteration of these characters and these universes, it was really cool seeing some of these old school ideas mixed in with those characters. Because man, they did some really awesome stuff, especially in the finale. Yeah, we didn't get a lot of Shadow through this entire story, but the little we got, that's some of the best written Shadow we've gotten in a long time. I know there are still a lot of restrictions Sega is putting on him, but they are leading him in a more familiar direction. There's a lot more nuance to his character, and man, it was awesome to see him finally flex his abilities. And my comparisons to older characters aside, let me make it clear, I've been enjoying Lanolin. Yeah, I do think there are some parallels to Sally, and again, we're going to talk about all of that in a Freedom Fighters video. But like I said in the other video, and I will say it again here, they're still doing unique things with her characterization. She seems a lot more anxious and not quite used to all these high-stakes situations she suddenly has found herself in. But man, that Lamb did an awesome introduction back into the story in issue 61, and I really hope the fan base around her continues continues to grow, because like I keep saying, regardless of comparisons with other characters, I don't want to see any of these characters go the way of the freedom fighters. This premise and these characterizations work for Sonic for a good reason, so let's stop getting rid of them. Those bell powers look awesome. Utilize that in a game, that would be great. And of course, it's nice to see some love for the love between Tangle and Whisper. I know a lot of the creatives behind the scenes really have been pushing for them to be an actual couple, but Sega is going to be Sega and not officially canonize any of that. I do think it's because they are trying to avoid any kind of romantic shipping nonsense in Sonic storytelling, and I do understand that, but I also think there's a heavy bit of, let's call it old school thinking when it comes to decision making from Sega of Japan. It is a shame that a lot of these characters and their relationships still have to be subtly hinted at instead of being outright said that this is a lesbian couple, but for what it's worth, the people that created these characters seem to be rooting for that particular pairing, and I know that's really important for a lot of fans. So while it's not much, this panel did mean a lot to a lot of folks. If I have any nitpicks outside of the weird pacing I think this kind of had on occasion, the dimensional trap stuff, I don't really know if that sold me at any point. They had such a heavy emphasis on it chasing down the other characters, and then Tangle is intangible, then tangible again. I actually had to read these issues a couple times through to actually figure out what the heck this thing was doing. That could just be me not interpreting what I'm seeing, but the confusing back and forth between her being able to fight Metal Sonic and then pass through Metal Sonic, they're invisible yet visible again, and I guess I just completely bypassed Tails' explanation the first time around when he explained how they all came back, but I was under the impression that their atoms were supposed to be dispersed across a bunch of dimensions with that new and improved portal. I don't know. The concept is fine enough, gave us some fun little antics with the diamond cutters, and overall with all the characters they had to juggle between all of these issues, I think they did a pretty good job giving enough attention to all of them instead of just focusing up on Sonic saving the day. Yeah, he did get the final blow against the giant tower mech, but let's be real, it was Shadow who was the MVP here with that final chaos control. It was really nice seeing all of these characters interact, and in some subtle ways, hints of what I loved about old school characters that are now long lost to history, interacting with newer generations of game characters. And it all merged together quite nicely. This was a fun concept, this was a fun setting, this was just a fun story. One that, yeah, I might have wanted to stick around a little bit longer than it did. But of course, I'm excited to see whatever they come up with next. But that is going to do it for today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. And thank you for sticking through this entire video. And of course, thank you to all the patrons who help keep this show up and running. With an extra special shout out to these fine folks here: Kyle Winter, Cirrus the Skeptic, Joseph Duncan Sonic 2 Blue, John, Josh Strider, Intangible Casey, Hatsworth, Tiny Jericho, Ginger Bob, Jack of All Spades, Tristan Trap Meekers, Dun Dun, Quote Resident Fanboy, Miles the Prower, Jeremy Singer, Mr. Boo J, Sam Webster, Fish Flop, Lucas Lipker, The Bad Pal, Jonathan Dobbs, Haley, Dr. SP here. Sonic 1 was released on the solstice, so Sonic's birthday is literally the door into summer. That's actually kind of cool. Never thought about it that way. Oh, now that song's stuck in my head. Cecil the Glade, The Dark Neon, Stefan Plakanica, 3 Monic, Graham J. Hall, Lenny X, Wayne is Boss, Ledric, David 20 covers, 20 covers, David covers, David 20 covers 20, David covers, hi Nick. Oh god, am I having a stroke? Jimmy Duke STR, The Lumberjack, NBTV, Trash Baphomet, Autumn from Twitter.com, Jin Sayotame, Bowden, I'm not reading that, Enerjack 5, Grayson Conager, Spades the Nocturne, Ken K, Ven 101, Paxton Bisbee, Sindarin 7, Haruspecs, 3 Rule 4, Twilord. Did you know the skin on your elbow is called a weakness? At this point, yes, I did add Zinko. Thank you. Paisley, Eric Delgado, Kodinsky, Jamo Art, Sayonara Robocop, Crimson Rose. Sorry about all the chaos with names. You can just call me Nix. You could have just wrote Nix. Sonic PAJ, Municent, Roxas the Cat, Godzilla, Makuta of Salt, Gleam the Anomaly, Alexander Watson, Calais Presley, Neil Gampa, Conan Kudo, Sharif Pi, the Lex, the most powerful ship in the 2 universes, Native Nerd 27, Kaido Prower, Swift Cannon, Spearmint, Commitris Prower, Omega Man 21, Penn Adelaide, Other Envelope, Jamie Torres Jr., The Phantomus, and Silver Stars. Or is it Silver Star S? Just let me know. Either way, thank you guys so much for your support, and thank you for making that read ever so entertaining. But hey, I've got a new Sonic collection to finally review, so I'm gonna get working on that. And some other fun surprises down the road, so if you're not subscribed yet, I don't know why you're still here after a Patreon read, but if you are and you're not subscribed, please, pretty please. Anyway, until next time, toot toot, Sonic Warriors.
Why do I get